Hi guys, welcome back to Barovia Made, and today I'm going to be showing you how I achieve this finish. It is a burning finish that I do on the majority of my tables. I think it looks really nice and rustic, and I think it always pairs very nicely with some modern style legs. And the burn finish adds an extra layer of protection to the tabletop, especially with soft woods like pine, which is what most pallets are made out of, so that's why I use the finish. The burn-in actually hardens the surface of the wood, as well as giving it a nice look. The Vikings used to actually burn the ends of their posts before driving them into the ground to protect them against moisture and obviously breaking when driving them into the ground. So how I always start it off is obviously sanding all the way up from 60 to 320 grit just before I burn the table. I don't take it all the way up to final sanding because we have to sand afterwards as well. And before I get up into those higher grits, I like to go around to any imperfections and fill them in with charcoal and super glue. There are plenty of methods to fill in these imperfections. I just use charcoal and super glue because it's the cheapest, it's the fastest, and it gives the same look as any other methods, like if you were to use epoxy. So I really recommend this because you can get everything done in one day instead of having to pour the epoxy and wait 24 hours, 3 days, however long the epoxy takes to cure. You can just get it done really quickly with some super glue. And you can use some accelerator, but I don't use accelerator. I just use it, leave it to seep into the wood. It hardens pretty quickly anyway, so yeah, it leaves a nice smooth finish so you can run your finger over it. Nothing gets caught on it, but you still get the nice looks of the cracks, because I quite like the looks of the cracks. I think it makes it look nice and rustic. And do not forget your corners. But the one thing I will recommend when doing this is don't start at a very low grit. I like to start off at 120 grit, just because if you slip and make a mistake, you can really do some damage to your table when you're in those lower grits. Using a higher grit takes more time, but it gives you that little bit of extra insurance. So now we're going to get onto the burning part, which is my favourite part about the process because we get to play with fire. Now, one thing I will recommend is if you do buy one of these cheap weed burners is that you take the spark plug out of it, because the spark plug melts, which I will show you later on in the video, and it will ruin your tabletop. Plus, it burns a lot hotter, which is what you want when burning these tables, because you're only trying to burn the top layer of the surface. You don't want to burn deep down into the wood, because you can end up with some very vicious cracking, which obviously messes with the structural integrity of the tabletop. And also, you get a lot more warping the further you burn into the table. And you can't really tell in this footage because it's sped up, but what I like to do is go in very small circles to try and get the table as even as possible. Don't stress too much if you can't get it as even as possible, because you can always come back and burn the lighter spots, and when you're sanding you can burn the darker spots, not burn the darker spots, you can sand the darker spots away to make them a bit lighter. And here you can see what I was talking about with the warping. 9 times out of 10 your table will cup once you've done one side, but all you got to do is burn the other side and it will pull itself back. I'll show you this in a second, but I'm just showing you there that it's warped. So what I do is I light the torch back up again and I burn the back of it. You might want to skip this step, but I really wouldn't recommend it, because even though people don't look at the bottom side of the table, it's still nice to have that quality look. You know, it's the little things that matter, and these are little things is what adds the extra price onto your products. And as you can see here, we've managed to get the table straight again purely just by burning the other side of the table. And if this doesn't work first time around, you can just clamp it straight and leave it in front of a fire or a radiator, and it eventually over a few days it will come back to being straight. I've done this before and it works. And this is what I was talking about taking the spark plug out. Not only does it make the torch better and burn hotter, but you do not get this. This was so much stress to deal with. I had to sand it all the way back down. It burned a few millimeters into the actual table, so there was a lot of material I had to sand off to get it back to raw wood and all straight again so I could reburn it and refinish it. This was a headache that could have easily been avoided if I just took the spark plug out. But hindsight's a beautiful thing, and I'm here to tell you before you make the same mistake. So after we're done burning the table and hopefully avoiding that mistake, I'd like to sand from 400 grit all the way up to 800 grit. Obviously you can sand it however smooth you like it, but I like my tables to be really smooth. And if any time in that process you realise you've sanded through the burn finish, or you've missed a little spot and you need to quickly touch up any spots, then a jet lighter works really well for these spots. I will recommend though that you keep your face away from the table. You might want to put your face really close to it so you can really get the detail in, but the smoke gets in your eyes, and as you can see here, I'm crying. So what we want to do after we've done that, obviously, you know, you've burnt that, it's a little bit darker, so you want to go around and just blend it all in to try and get the most even finish as possible. And because we're so high up in the grits, we're not worried about taking too much material off. With these sorts of grits, we're not going to get any pitting or dips in our table. So here's what I use to finish the table. I like to use a mixture of mineral oils and beeswax. The jar you just saw there is actually a 50-50 ratio of mineral oil and beeswax, but I like to go in first with some just straight mineral oil, because it really soaks down deep into the table, and then I like to come over the top of it with the beeswax finish, well, the beeswax and mineral oil finish. It's really cheap to make, and it does a good job at protecting your table. What I will recommend though is that you do as many coats as you can of the beeswax finish and just let it soak in. You know, spend a couple of days coming back and forth, putting the finish on, walking away, letting the wood really soak it up, because then that way it is as protected as it can get with this finish. You got to remember, this isn't like a polyurethane, it's not like a plastic coating. When you touch the table, you're still touching the raw wood. This is just protecting the table from humidity and moisture, so you can set drinks down on the table and you don't have to worry about bringing it into different environments so the table might cup or not. Which is also another reason why you want to make sure you finish all the sides, because if you only finish one side, humidity in the air can still attack one side, so one side will want to react to that humidity while the other side is still locked in with that finish, so that will stay the same, which obviously causes the table to warp and cup. So make sure you hit all sides with this finish, and you want to do it a minimum of 3 to 4 times, like I say, because the more you have on there, the more protected it is. But you obviously don't want it really oily, so you want to keep putting it on the table until you realize it's no longer soaking it up, and then you can go back and buff it all off. And you want to make sure you get the sides of the table as well, don't leave them out. And that, my woodworking friends, is how I achieve this finish. Like I say, I am a big fan of this finish. I love the way it looks, and I do it on the majority of my tables, and I'll show you some examples of other tables that I've done. And this finish is usually the most asked about finish that I do on my tables from my clients. Whenever I show these pictures to my clients, they're like, I want that. So I'd really recommend trying this finish out on your tables. Be different from everyone else. Not everyone wants to buy the same stuff, so if you offer them something different, they'll be more inclined to see you as a potential maker for their product. Now, I'm still relatively new in this whole woodworking scene. I've only been doing it for around about 7 months or so. So I'm open to suggestions, I'm open to ways that I can improve this finish if you know better, or any other finishes that you know of. Please write down in the description any advice, anything you have. I'd love to hear it. I read through all my comments, I reply to the majority of them, and thank you for watching. I really hope you do stick around. I'd love to see you here, so please like, comment and subscribe, and hopefully with all the knowledge I gain from your comments, I can relay that back to you one day and share whatever little knowledge I have back with you. So stick around for the journey. I can't wait to see you.